The Secrets of Technology is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Technology. Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Technology, where we discuss the technology news that's important to you from a uniquely Catholic point of view. And joining me today on the panel are Father Andrew Kinstetter. Hi, Father Andrew.
Hello, hello.
And Pat Scott. Hi, Pat.
Greetings and salutations.
Safely back in Austin from last week, when she was here with me outside of Boston, but now she's returned home. So glad to see that you got home safely.
Yes, it was a good trip.
Before we get into the main meat of today's episode, I do want to kind of talk about something that we kind of wanted to talk about last week and kind of ran out of time, but I think this is the right panel for it because we're all iPhone people on this panel, and that is Apple Arcade. The Apple Arcade is brand new. We've known about it's been coming, but it released with iOS 13 and the new phones, and it's, in case you don't know, it's $5 a month, and you get all the games within Arcade for free. They don't have additional cost. There's no in-game upgrades. There's nothing like that. It's one price. It buys the whole thing. And it's supposed to be up to 100 games. I think by the end of this month, they said there'll be 100 games in the store in Apple Arcade. First, Pat, I know you've got Apple Arcade, as the kids have reported to me, your grandkids. Father Andrew, have you got Apple Arcade?
I have not.
Okay, all right.
I know.
Is that intentional?
You've been busy.
Yeah. Actually, it has been intentional. Every time that I've looked at it, I see the try 1 month free and think, I don't think for me it's worth it to go beyond the 1 month free. So I haven't even done the free month. Which you kind of laugh because I'm totally an Apple guy, and I'm a video gamer. But I guess I haven't seen anything yet that's gotten me just gung ho to go get it.
Okay, maybe we can change that.
They might. I don't know. I'm so much more of a. I guess I'm still a console guy, so I've still got the Nintendo and the Xbox, and I prefer that. So an Apple Arcade isn't quite speaking to me as of yet. They've got to come up with something that'll just kind of wow me to get me to move over, or maybe get some, intellectual property. If they drew in Mario or Zelda or something, maybe I'd be more inclined to get it.
Well, interesting comparison. Speaking of Mario, so the Mario Kart game is out.
Yep, which I did download.
Which is $5 a month for that one game.
It's like, I think you can play it for free, but you can't do like the fastest cup unless you pay for the subscription. So I have not bought the subscription and I have played it. But again, even with that, I'm way more of a give me Mario Kart Double Dash on the GameCube any day over that. So one of the things that Arcade has brought us, well, actually, it's not really even Arcade, it's iOS 13 has brought us is controllers. They had made for iPhone or made for iOS specific controllers for a while, but now you can connect a wireless or Bluetooth Xbox or PS4 DualShock controller to your iPhone, iPad, or Apple TV, which is very interesting to me. So I'm kind of curious. I might see if I can get one of those. Maybe someone's got one laying around I can borrow from them and just to give it a try, because that would be interesting to me. Well, Pat, you and I have Apple Arcade. Have you found any games that you particularly like on it that have got your attention?
I found several that I enjoyed playing and then got to a certain point and couldn't get beyond that point. And those were the Golf?
Yes,
and Hexaflip. I've really enjoyed them, but I get to a certain point and I can't get beyond it.
Yes.
And so that's a little frustrating. But I have other ones that are more casual or slower paced. The Patterned is like a jigsaw puzzle, but slightly different rules on it. But it's been real relaxing. I've really enjoyed playing that one. And then Dear Reader is a good simple, but wordplay with Jane Austen and Emily Dickinson and different things that where you're transposing the words or looking for misplaced words or misspelled words. And it's kind of just a casual game, which is the difference between you and me, Father. You like more serious games.
Yes.
I like more casual games that I can just put down in 3 minutes if I need to.
Right.
So, but anyway, I've enjoyed those. I've tried several of them. Some of them, I just get started and I say, no, that's not for me. But there's enough things I could play while I'm waiting for lunch to be served or while I'm waiting at the coffee shop. You know, there's enough there that I'm enjoying playing.
Well, there's a couple. So I like What the Golf too. It's crazy funny. Like the kids love it because it's
funny
like
physics.
Yeah. Well, some of them it's like the typical golf games where you kind of pull back on the screen, you get an arrow that shows the power, and then it putts the ball. And it does it at first. But then you do it, and it's the golfer that goes flying down the freeway, the fairway, and then it's the arrow itself that goes flying down there, and then you have to shoot the hole into a big one, and you get a hole in one. I mean, it's got a crazy, funny sort of way about it, which it's fun. So there's that one. I do like this game, Mini Motorways, where you have to kind of it's like a very simplified SimCity. You have to kind of keep the traffic flowing. It's a basic city planner game. So not too much tension in it, but there is a timer on it. Other ones. So this Sonic Racing, I'm not really good at that. It's like it's a kart game. It's like Mario Kart, except this is Sonic the Hedgehog. I'm not very good at those. I get my behind kicked all the time on those. So, I mean, there's a few of them I've been playing, and some of them are not for me, obviously. What's the one I just downloaded today?
The Frogger was kind of fun.
Frogger's kind of fun. Hexaflip, actually, you mentioned, Pat.
Yes,
I just downloaded that one. That is a lot of fun. It's a neat little puzzle thing, and I like it. So, and it's what I really like about it is the fact that I don't have to worry about in order to really get anywhere in this game, I got to pay for it. Otherwise I'm destined to slogging my way slowly to a stop in like some of these games. But there's no additional expense. It's all included. I like that. So
I might like some hints occasionally in some of the games.
Yes. So there's some ideas for folks if they're looking for something in the Apple Arcade. So let's move on to our first regular story today. There's a story involving the Pope and technology, which is right down our alley. This is exactly what we're about. So the Holy Father hosted a meeting at the Vatican last week, a conference of executives from companies like Facebook, Mozilla, Western Digital, and then they had a bunch of like scientists and smart people and government people and venture capitalists and that sort of thing. And they were talking about tech topics. And then the Holy Father addressed them, and he had some things to say, some warnings about technology. He warned against what he called a new form of barbarism, where the law of the strongest prevails over the common good. And I think, well, let me ask you, what do you think he meant by this? Father Andrew, we'll start with you. What do you think he meant by this form of barbarism, where the law of the strongest prevails over the common good?
Well, as I was reading kind of through that article, it seemed to be that he was relating it to just almost kind of the strongest voices out there being the ones leading the charge in perhaps public opinion. So the idea that the loudest voices are the ones that everybody listens to and then follows. And I was immediately thinking of just some of the algorithms in Facebook, the fake news, all of those sorts of things that are, or even scare tactics that try to get people to respond emotionally and support maybe something they wouldn't if they would have just thought through rationally. So it's a I guess a pretty kind of blatant attack on just swaying public opinion through the loudest voices out there.
Yeah, there was some. I remember that story a few years, a year or so ago, maybe even less than that, of Facebook was doing some psychological experiments on whether they could make people more or less depressed depending on what kinds of things they put in their news feed.
which is kind of scary. But it's this. I think you're right. It's this manipulation, but also that those who have access to certain technologies can dominate others who don't have access to the same technology, and that's kind of scary. Pat, what do you think of this, based on especially with the people that you work with every day?
Well, for instance, the example that was used in the article was on deepfakes.
Yep.
And that was something that has really been bothering me, the fact that a lot of my clients may not look far enough to discern that this is not really person X or person Y. They look at it, it looks like them, it sounds like them, and therefore they believe it.
Right.
And that type of thing really is bothering me. Now, that's not all a result of AI. I mean, the deep fakes definitely are, but the swaying of people's opinions by fake news, I'm not sure how much that's AI versus just malicious intent on a lot of that.
Yeah, I think a lot of the news media, the headlines especially, focused on the Pope making a reference to AI, but I don't think he was exclusively blaming AI. I think he was just being cautious of technology in general, where technology is today. But you're right about the deep fakes thing, which is, I see people sharing so-called quotes from people all the time. Well, as so-and-so said, and I'm like, but did he? Like, can you show me some evidence? But and then it's pretty easy to disprove that sort of thing if you do a little work. But if there's an actual video of someone's actual voice saying it, well, how do you dispute that? Even though it's a deep fake. So I suppose I should explain. Deep fakes are these new form of videos where they can take an image of a well-known person, say a president who's got a lot of video footage and a lot of recordings of their voice, and use that to make them say and do things they never actually said, to create a complete fabrication of this person. I've seen it demonstrated with the technology demonstration they used President Obama. It's a pretty scary technology. I mean, we thought photoshopping stuff was bad. This is going to be even worse.
Yeah, the other thing I was thinking about too is, although I'm not sure if you would call it AI related, but one of the articles I saw this week talked about using health related incentives in insurance companies and adjusting premiums based upon whether somebody participated or used a Fitbit or they did a certain amount of exercise. And that is a discrimination against those who can't do that, can't afford it, for whatever reasons they've got prior conditions. So that type of manipulation of people based upon statistics, or that maybe it is a form of AI that says, okay, here's the likelihood of this amount of people, we can save this many premiums. And that to me is very immoral.
Yeah. Right now, I think a lot of these companies, they'll use an incentive. If you use a Fitbit or other device, which we know tends to lead people toward a healthier lifestyle, will give you a prize, a benefit.
That I see is fine,
right?
But it's when they move to premiums.
Yeah, when they move to penalizing us for not going along, yeah, that can be very problematic. That's manipulating people, and that's the whole order of difference. So one of the things when he mentions AI, the Pope is quoted as saying, warning of the dangers of artificial intelligence, and to quote here, to circulate tendentious opinions and false data that could poison public debates and even manipulate the opinions of millions of people to the point of endangering the very institutions that guarantee peaceful civil coexistence. I mean, this is what people said happened in the 2016 election, is
right.
that state actors, perhaps from other countries, not even necessarily from within our country, wanting to destabilize our society, use these means to really further divide the people. I think you could argue that America has never been more divided than it is now. I mean, even in going to the, perhaps as much as the Civil War, which is kind of scary to think about. And a lot of it has to do with the technology platforms that have brought us into this space. How do you think we could, what could the technology be doing better? Do you have any does anybody have any ideas, of what we could do to how we could use the tech. I mean, this is really what we're about here on Secrets of Technology and in StarQuest. How do we use these tools for good, to bring people together as opposed to divide them? And that's the secret sauce, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I would say that one of the things that we can do is what we are doing right now. We're taking the news and trying to break it open for people to understand and to avoid just, kind of the blast videos or whatever that's meant to sway public opinion. We're trying to help people make informed decisions on their own, which I think is the goal. I mean, technology is great. We should share information, absolutely. But if you're going to blast out information in sort of a yellow journalism sort of way, well, then you're not using technology for the betterment of people. You're using technology for the betterment of your own selfish motives. And so it's something that we can and should use to help people understand. But I think, and Pat, you probably work with many of such people, is many people just take for granted what they read on the internet or see on the TV screen as the absolute truth when it may not be. And I also wanted to point out that with the Pope warning against using artificial intelligence in this way, it opens up a whole can of worms, because artificial intelligence by its nature doesn't have a soul, so doesn't have the rational capacities that a human person would have. And so to try to code any sort of ethics into an AI program is incredibly problematic. Well, and so, yep.
Yeah. Whose ethics? I mean, that's really kind of, you start to ask about who decides. The classic is when we're programming AI in a driverless car, how do we solve the trolley problem, for instance, which is that famous, you have two people in that direction and other people in the other direction, and you have to go in one of them. Someone's going to die. How do you decide? And that's a very difficult moral problem for a human being. How do you program a computer to decide that? I mean, this is a very serious ethical question. It's not really even a technical question. It's what do we as society want to these artificial intelligences to be able to do? I mean, it's a tricky one. I mean, Asimov's laws are I don't think are enough. Do no harm to a human being and that sort of thing. Well, there are limitations to these simple laws. So what I found most interesting here is that this conference could lead to a papal document on, well, the article says a papal document on artificial intelligence, but it's sort of become a catch-all term. Artificial intelligence is the new buzzword. What they mean is a papal document on emerging technologies. That is they would compare to the encyclical Laudato Si on the environment. So very, very interesting. I'd be interested in seeing such a document.
I would too.
All right. So we'll be keeping an eye on that and any other developments in that realm for sure. So our next story, we'll run through these pretty quick. Our next story is on the U.S. Census. Now, as people may or may not know, every 10 years by law, the federal government has to take a census of the people. We all have to travel to our home city where Caesar's people will come. No, wait, no, that's a whole other.
I don't have a donkey to ride there.
I know. There's no room at this Holiday Inn. No, they send out census takers. They actually come to our home and they count us. And this census that's going on now, the 2020 census that they're preparing for, it's taking place in, again, this new technology environment where data there's so much data about us being aggregated and so much machine learning and artificial intelligence out there that people can compile some of this data and make some very good guesses about who the people are that there's no name on it, no specific identifying address, nothing like that, but they'll say, no, yeah, there's enough data here. We know that it's you. I mean, I go back to this story from a few years ago about Target. It could tell when a woman was pregnant from her purchasing pattern, even if she didn't buy anything related to babies.
that they had enough data on enough women that they could tell that a woman who's pregnant tends to buy these completely unrelated things, and they started to advertise based on it, and then that freaks people out, and so they stopped doing that, or at least they had it. But this is one of the same questions with the census: is they're afraid that there's so much data is compiled in the census that it will find out things about people that perhaps not even the law says they're not supposed to find out. And so some have proposed injecting some error, some set amount of fake data into the census, which other people say that is a terrible idea. So what do you guys think? I mean, we're weighing accuracy. You know, the whole point of the census is to get accurate information versus privacy. Where's the balance in this? What do you think? How about you, Pat?
Ooh, that's a hard one.
I'll lay this one on your doorstep.
I guess I feel like that there's so many benefits that can come out of the census in terms of information about the directions of even legislative districts and things like that. A minority to know where the minorities are to be able to serve people better. But I understand it might be able to find this Latvian immigrant in Nova Scotia because of all of the things that tie it to that one village, and there's not very many people there, and so therefore they can figure out who it is. That is scarier, but I don't know. Privacy is beginning to be something that how much privacy can we actually expect?
Right. I mean, Father Andrew, is privacy a relic of the past? The kind of privacy that they're talking about? I mean, some privacy we still got, that still exists, but is this absolute privacy, this expectation, is it a thing of the past?
I think the absolute privacy is. I think maybe the sticking point here would be more specifically probably in terms of illegal immigrants, because the census data could be used to determine someone's legal status. And that's one of the big issues in our country and in our church. And I don't really know the best solution out of it. We have ways of dealing and working and ministering to people in the church without needing to ask those questions, because we are meant to minister to the person. And so I understand privacy from that sort of lens, and I would agree with it to some degree. But on the flip side, there's so many other data points that people have online, social media, all sorts of stuff that, like, for me personally, they could take all that data from me and it doesn't bother me because I'm a public person. But I'm not sure what that means in terms of the people who are quite a bit more private about their lives. Personally, I guess I'm more okay with a little bit of kind of they call it fake data. I guess the image that they used was that of a camera recording a scene and kind of blurring out the face of the individual. You still get the gist, you get the context of what's going on, but you're not seeing the super specifics. And I guess I'm okay with that sort of approach to it. But I don't know how far is too far.
Yeah, the thing I think about is I get the good intentions, and there are good intentions in it, but I worry about the things that the data is used for, such as most specifically redistricting. If someone were to mess with this data intentionally, under the guise of privacy, they could really They could determine who runs this country. I mean, if you change a handful of congressional districts across the country, change the population here a little bit, take away a congressman from this red state and give it to a blue state, or vice versa. I mean, you really could change. You could change the balance in Congress and change the way that this country is governed in the future. So I think it's a very important question, and it has to be handled very delicately. I agree. I think privacy is important. I think that it's important that we people feel free to be honest with the census. That's another part of it, is if people don't feel like their information, their privacy is safe from the census, they'll just give fake information. They'll input bad data, and that's as bad as intentionally putting the bad data in. So it's a serious question, and then we start to raise a new question, which I don't think anyone I've seen asked, is maybe a census, the way that we've always thought of it, is a relic of the past. Maybe there's another way to accomplish the same ends, but through a different means. But I'm not sure what that is yet, or even if we're at the point yet where we could accomplish it. But maybe it's time to start looking at different ways of accomplishing the same thing that don't require us to go out and get a survey from every single person.
Well, and the other thing is the census is taken so periodically that by the time they're using the data, people are very, very migratory, and yes, there's a lot of transition. So it may not reflect what is now the decision being made based upon that.
Right.
So that's a good point, that maybe in its present form of being taken only every so many years, and the nature of people changing their location, changing schools, changing whatever, maybe it isn't the best way to take care of it.
Yeah, I mean, some of the redistricting has only just been settled from the 2010 census. 8-9 years later, they're just settling that, and meanwhile, all those people have moved. They're not right. They don't live there anymore, and it's a whole different thing. And and of course, then it raises the whole other question of gerrymandering districts, and that's a whole nother thing. So maybe there's a much larger conversation that needs to happen. Who knows if we're even capable of having it in this country? But maybe we need to be looking at something different than what we've done. So interesting thing to look at. And again, let's keep an eye on this as the census rolls in next year, and we'll see how it goes. All right, so let's move on to some headlines. So a couple of briefer things. The iOS 13 update train continues to roll on. I think in the last 12 days, we've had 4 separate iOS updates, which I think is unprecedented. I don't know if any of you. So the first thing is just to give the recap. iOS 13 came out on September 20th. Then we got iOS 13.1 on the 24th, which was planned ahead of time. They told us that was going to happen. They had to get 13 out on the 20th so that when the new phones arrived in people's hands the next day, they could reset their phones if they had to. That otherwise it wouldn't have, people's phones could have been bricked. But they knew that they had stuff that needed to come out very soon after, so they rolled out 13.1 on the following Monday. Then, but then we got another quick update. I think the end of that week, so the end of last week. And then another update on Monday, this past Monday. So we're up to 13.1.2. Do you guys update as soon as you see the notice on your phones or iPads? Is that something you do, or do you wait? What's your practice, Father Andrew?
I feel like this is a do what I say, don't do what I do sort of situations.
Yeah, especially given our next headline that's coming up. But
I mean. So with this caveat, I also use the beta software. So I tend to update immediately right away. So I would say for someone who just has a phone, doesn't have any of the beta software, I would still, I guess, recommend updating immediately with that because of all the potential security patches that are coming through, those sorts of things that'll save them from potentially getting hacked or those sorts of things. So I guess I would say update immediately on the normal updates, but maybe not update to the beta software unless you are tech savvy and are willing to play into that experimental software.
Yeah, I generally do not do betas unless there's a very compelling reason. Like I didn't do betas this year. I did an iPad beta last year or the year before, but I avoided this year. My general advice is on the big round numbers, iOS 12, iOS 13, iOS 14 next year. Wait to the second update. Wait till at least the first update. There's usually a 0.1 or 0.01 within a couple of weeks. If you're at all, I always update immediately because I want to see what's going on. But if you're at all concerned or worried, on the big round number ones, wait to the second update that comes out that fixes the bug fixes. On the minor updates, as soon as you get a minor update on your phone, update immediately because it usually has security patches, and there's usually a reason for that. Whereas, and that's actually true of the big round number updates. So when 13 comes out, there's usually also a point update for, say, 12 with some security patches for those who didn't update right away. So that's why I'm saying it's okay to wait on that. But in general, I update right away. And I always have to have the new features. It's just, I host a technology podcast. Obviously, I'm going to update right away. But that's not what I tell people. Pat, what do you tell people?
I usually tell my clients, I go ahead and update immediately. But I suggest they wait a couple of weeks on the big ones. Wait till things have settled down. And since they don't understand necessarily point 1, point 2,
right.
I just say, why don't you wait 2 or 3 weeks? And then if you have any questions, you can ask me. Other than that, go ahead and update.
Right.
But on the little ones, I tell them, go ahead and update those immediately.
Is that true for both Android and iOS for you?
No, we're talking iOS only. On the Android ones, it depends upon what phone you've got. I've got a Google friendly phone, so I update as soon as they come out. But there's a lot of people who can't because of the multiple vendors, multiple hardware platforms out there. But I still would recommend, even on those, if they get a notification that there is an update, go ahead. Because to me, that unless it's a major update, like from one vanilla or one flavor to the next.
Right. So it's almost the same in that case with Android is if you get a notification to update and it's a minor update, do that. If it's a major update, wait a couple weeks. I think that's fairly safe advice. Okay. So, that brings us to our next headline, which is very interesting. Which it's the sort of thing that says even the most tech savvy among us can get caught by bad things. And it also leads to the advice of update security updates immediately. So there's a TV show called Mr. Robot. Listeners to this podcast might be familiar with it, and it's about computer hackers. Just sort of as a very brief way of summarizing it. And it's been credited as being among the most accurate regarding computer technology and hacking of any TV show or movie ever made. They claim that everything you see done in the show is actually possible in the real world, which is remarkable given how poorly most TV shows and movies portray computer technology. I mean, really bad most of the time. But this one is they use the real tools, the real techniques. And so the guy behind all that, the tech expert from Mr. Robot, got hacked. His child's phone, they have an iPhone that got stolen, and it's supposed to be nowadays that the iPhones, they have activation lock, and you can remote wipe them and all this stuff. Well, they figure what happens is now and that has helped. It has reduced iPhone stealing because it's just not worth it for most crooks. But the sophisticated ones are finding ways to still be crooks. So they drop the phone as soon as they steal it. They drop it in a foil-lined bag or some radio frequency blocking bag or container, which prevents the phone from being remote locked and wiped. And then once they're in a place where the signals can't get in, they start doing their thing with it. And so that's pretty straightforward. But then he got to a point where somehow, and nobody seems to know how yet, the hackers were able to break into the data on the phone to get through the encryption that these phones have. Because of course, this guy's kids' phones are going to have really good encryption. They're going to have good passwords and everything. But somehow, in a technique that no one seems to know how they did it, they got through it and have been using the data to try to trick his son, I think, or son or daughter. I don't think they mentioned what it was, but his child, to respond with more information that would allow them to further hack their life.
and so it's very interesting. This article, it's kind of reads like a Mr. Robot episode. But there's some important lessons in it that he lays out. He says, don't trust messages with links in them. This is something I've been telling people for ages. If you get an email and it says, I'm from X company, I'm from Apple, I'm from Microsoft, I'm from the IRS, click this link and do this thing. Never do that. Always enter, go to your browser and manually type in the address. Never click a link in an email message that's unsolicited, even if it looks legitimate. Just don't ever do that. So let's start with that. So good advice. Is this something you do yourself? Is this do as I say, not as I do, or do you follow this advice? Either of you?
I try to follow that advice. There are times that I can tell by looking at the headers and things like that I'm more trusting of a particular thing. But most of the time, I go to the site itself. The ones that bug me are newsletters that come out and say, click to view this in your browser. And there's nothing else you can do.
Right. Because
that's the only way you can go view the thing is in the browser. And so it's like I'd like to clobber those companies on the head. But I tell people, if you get something, even if it looks like it's totally legitimate, always go to the bank or go to whatever it is that's telling you there's a problem. Never, ever, ever trust what's in the email.
Right. That's a good advice.
But you know how many people I have caught?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I'm constantly having to clean off computers and help people reset passwords and even, commiserate when they've had their bank accounts hacked because they clicked on a link.
How about you, Father Andrew? Is this something that you've seen or had to do?
Thankfully for myself, I've never had any issues with it, but I'm very aware and I would trust links in emails if I recognized who sent it to me. So I can, you can see the email that it's sent from. So if it's a, Kim Commando newsletter, I trust her. So I'm happy to do that. But her, it's all in the email anyway. So you actually wouldn't necessarily need to go to the website unless you wanted to read more. And then all the junk email, I just delete.
Right.
I get all the phishing emails that everybody else does and, claiming to be from Facebook and I have a new notification or whatever it is. And I just delete it. And I totally just go to the website or my app on my phone if there's something there that I really need.
Right.
I usually tell people to turn off the notifications in Facebook so that they don't get emails that are telling them about stuff. And I say, just go to Facebook every day and look to see, hey, there's a little bell up there that shows you the notifications that you would have gotten in an email, but you can trust that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You can't trust that the notification you're getting from Facebook is really from Facebook.
Speaking of which, if you get a Facebook message from a friend and it says, are you in this viral video? Don't click the link.
Oh.
That's another one of these attacks. I get these all the time now because I have friends who have clicked the link and then their Facebook gets hacked and it's a self-propagating virus. So don't click the link. You're not. Trust me, you're not in the viral video. just trust me on that. The next thing, the bit of advice that he has is always keep your phone up to date and make sure you use all the security features available in your device. Use Touch ID or Face ID. Use a long password as long as you can possibly remember and can enter, on a cold winter's day without your gloves on, without getting frostbite. See, this is the thing is these phones are designed in places like Southern California where people don't have winter. So that you have to, some of these guys should live up, where Father Andrew or I live and have to do this stuff in the winter with gloves and stuff. But use the security features that your phone or iPad or whatnot offers. All of the ones possible, including two-factor where you can. I know it can be a pain, but there's ways to set it up so it's not so much. But it just makes sense. And that was his third bit of advice, which is to where multi-factor authentication, two-factor, or that sort of thing is available. Use it. I have some sites that I don't really care about. They're just like I go and I read the news. I don't set up two-factor on that just because I don't care if someone breaks into that and reads the news. You know what I mean?
Right.
But in anything that matters, I have two-factor just because it just makes sense.
Do you guys use two-factor? And what do you use for an app for that, Pat? What do you use for two-factor?
I've been using the Microsoft Authenticator. It's been the easiest one for me to set up and use, and it's real easy to answer the question, etc. In course, with Apple and Google, they do their own authentication through another app you have installed, which is even nicer.
Right.
And but there's a lot of things that I don't care if you want to watch my Netflix. That's okay. Yeah, I don't really worry about that one.
Yeah. You'll mess up all of my recommendations with your stupid shows, but,
Well, yeah.
Father Andrew, do you use two-factor, and what app do you use to do it?
Yeah, so I use two-factor with my Google account and my Microsoft account, and I use the Google Authenticator app on my phone. Of course, Facebook, I also use it, but it's built into the app, or it sends you a text message.
Yeah.
And then Apple, it's sort of built into the system too, that it'll alert one of my other devices when I'm doing that. But I have it set up on most everything that's got those sorts of information in it.
That's actually a bit of advice I want to give people. If you have two Apple devices, don't update them both at the same time, because when one wants to authenticate and the other's in the middle of an update, it ain't happening. And when that comes up, it's going to want to authenticate on the other one, and you're stuck. Just do one at a time.
Well, and then I have some people that they had two devices, one of them breaks, and now they're in trouble.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so always, try to have always if possible have two ways to get at something. You know what I mean? And that's actually why I have two authenticator apps. 1Password has it built in, so I always set it up there. And then I also use a third-party app called Authy, which is like the Google Authenticator app, but it lets you store them in the cloud that's encrypted, the authenticators, so that if your device gets wiped or lost, with Google Authenticator, it's all tied to that device, that install of that app. Whereas with Authy, it can store them, doesn't have to. It can store them in the cloud, which I like that backup, and I use a very secure password on that one. And then it also I can have them show up on my Apple Watch. I can get the authentication codes from there as well, which is very handy when you're busy out and about and that sort of thing, or you're in an app on your phone and you want to pull up the authentication. You don't have to switch apps; you just do it on your wrist, which is very nice. So, this expert, I forgot to get his name actually. What was his name? I should use his name instead of just calling him out. Mark Rogers. Yes, that would be the nice thing to do is identify him. Mark Rogers. His bottom line is, know that these are getting more sophisticated. Every time it's an arms race. Every time the phone manufacturers increase security, the bad guys figure out a way to break it. So you just got to be prepared for that. And there are likely exploits out there that the hackers are using that no one knows about, including, Apple, so or Google or whomever. So it's just something to be aware of. So keep your devices up to date with security updates.
Can I throw out a couple more things?
Yes,
on
please
that?
do.
So these are not necessarily related to being hacked, but more just general advice for being aware against phishing attacks. Perhaps maybe the biggest thing is if something in your email or a text message or a Facebook message, whatever it is, if it sounds suspicious at all, don't trust it.
If it sounds suspicious, it's probably something bad. Right.
Actually, about maybe a month ago or so, I got an email from my bishop.
Uh-huh.
And it was hey, I need you to do something for me. Email me back. and I decided it sounded suspicious, but legitimate enough that I responded back, and then it became this back and forth about how my bishop needed iTunes gift cards to give to somebody.
Right.
And I was like, oh my gosh, this is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to ask you for iTunes gift cards to give to someone in need. That's
the
just not
IRS
how this
doesn't
works.
take payment in iTunes gift cards too, just so you know.
so if something sounds suspicious at all, just don't trust it. And if it's, from a friend, call them up, go talk to them, see if they actually did send you that message. And if they did, then go ahead and do it. The other thing would be to just be friends with someone who is tech savvy if you are not tech savvy yourself. My mom does this all the time. She'll get something in her email or something, and she'll shoot it off me. She'll ask me, "Hey, is this legit?" And I'll say, "No, absolutely not. Delete that and don't ever, go there." So rather than her going forward and just clicking the link to see if it is legit or not and then getting caught in some scam, she asks me. So if you know someone, you have a family member or friend who's tech savvy, be friends with them. They're likely in the know on what's good and what's not.
Yep. That's good advice.
Yes, I encourage my clients that if there's any suspicion that they've got, ask me, text me, email me, leave me a voice message. I will handle those. I don't get upset at those.
Yeah. I actually, speaking of the Bishop email that she got, I got a Facebook message from somebody. I'm trying to remember who it was, but it was totally out of character. I'm like, this is not that person. No. So.
Yeah, in fact, I was actually at a client's today where I got the thing about gift cards. His niece was birthday and he was out of town. So I played along with the bad guy until I got to the guy's house and got the password changed and everything. And then I responded one more time saying, "That's funny. You said you were traveling. I'm sitting in your office talking with you." And said, "I'm reporting you."
Right.
Of course, I really can't because there's no way I can know who he really is. But, just reporting this to the FBI or an FCC, just to give them a little bit of scare.
Right. All right. Those, all good advice there. So let's wrap things up with our picks of the week, our usual feature where we talk about some tip or something that we are enjoying lately that we want to share with the audience. And Pat, why don't we start with you? What is your pick of the week?
Well, I have a lot of clients that they have iPhones, but they have Windows machines. Of course, the people with Apple machines, their pictures and everything are always on their computer and they're synced nicely. But for my Windows people, it's been, hey, those things are in iCloud, but I don't have them on my computer. I have to manually plug in my phone and sync it. Well, some time ago, Apple put out iCloud for Windows, and they've made some tweaks to it over time that have actually made it pretty useful. So I can set somebody up with iCloud for Windows and tell it the first time after it's set up, download everything from iCloud, and it puts it into a folder and you can choose the name. And then from then on, it will automatically download any new pictures that have been taken on the phone into that folder. So then they can move them into wherever their folders are for their particular pictures, since they don't have an iPhoto library or a photos library. And conversely, they could say, here's a whole bunch of pictures that I've taken on a camera and imported it into Windows. Oh, take all of these and upload them into iCloud so we can see them on our phones. So that has been really helpful. And in addition to, you can also say any shared albums that people have shared with you, those will show up on your computer as well. So that's been, it doesn't keep them in sync, but it does a pretty good upload, download way of keeping you better accurate or up to date.
Okay. And it gives you some iCloud storage that you can get. You get everyone gets 5 gigs free, so that's pretty good, and you get access to that.
Yes, you can get to any files that you've saved on your iPhone and in your iCloud Drive. You can see them on your computer at that point. And
it will the email and contacts and calendar will interface and sync with Outlook. Is that correct?
It can. I don't really care for Outlook that much. Most of my people, it doesn't do a great job of syncing. It kind of works and sometimes breaks, and it's real hard to get it working again.
Okay.
But of course, if you've got an iPhone and you've got you've got Google Mail or Yahoo Mail or Hotmail or any of those, you've got apps that you can use to keep those in sync. So there's no real reason for
That's true.
Not having your contacts on your phone and synced.
Okay, that sounds good.
And that's outside of iCloud for Windows. You don't need that for those.
Yeah. Well, that's great. That's a good thing to Windows folks to remember. That's a nice idea. Excellent. Father Andrew, what's your pick this week?
So my pick this week, I feel like I'm a Nintendo fanboy today and not an Apple Arcade fanboy. So not that I have anything against Apple Arcade, but my pick of the week is going to be the new Nintendo Switch Lite. This was something that was released just a couple weeks ago, I think, in September. And it's the Nintendo Switch, but it's slightly smaller. It's lighter. It's got the controllers built into the little console. So it's meant to be the Nintendo Switch, but specifically only for handheld mode and to take on the go. So it is cheaper than the Nintendo Switch. It's $200 instead of $300. It's got 3 to 7 hour battery life. It's about 5 ounces lighter. The only thing that it can't do is it can't connect to a TV like the big Switch can. And it can only play the games that are able to support handheld mode. But this is something that Nintendo has done phenomenally throughout most of its life. It was the one who created the Game Boy, that gaming on the go experience that I experienced as a kid and that many people just really love. So the Nintendo Switch Lite is kind of that for the Nintendo Switch. And so that definitely is my pick of the week this week.
That's neat. Yeah, it's just a bit smaller. But you save $100. That's good.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Better for the kids than the big one.
All right. Well, I got something that's free, and but it's only for your Mac. If you've got an Apple TV or you know someone who does, and you've seen those beautiful Apple TV screensavers, sometimes I just play them because they're just beautiful to look at. The super slow-mo of aerial photography. Well, you can get that now on your Mac. There's right in the screensavers system preferences. There's a link to a program you can download from GitHub. Don't be intimidated by GitHub. There is a link to just download the file and open it in system prefs, and you're good to go. And you get access to all of the screensavers that are available for Apple TV, because they're all just sitting on a server somewhere waiting for everyone's Apple TVs to download them. And many of them are in 4K high definition video. And I've got a 27-inch, Retina iMac screen here, and it's beautiful. It looks better than on my TV. My iMac is higher resolution than my TV is. Yeah, you get all of the different ones that you can download. I'm just trying to open it up here now. The screensaver. There's in the screensaver system preference. There'll be a one called Aerial. That's what it's called, Aerial. And if you click through the screensaver options, it gets all kinds of options. You can pre-download all of the screensavers, which will take up a lot of screen space. Some of these are gigabytes in size. A lot of, not screen space, hard drive space. Some of these screensavers are gigabytes in size, and there's a lot of them available. You could choose which ones you like. If you don't like certain ones, you uncheck them. You can set as a preference you can use the right arrow to skip through the screensavers. And the latest screensavers that are available now, they call the sea ones, or the underwater ones, that were produced by BBC's Natural History division, that does Blue Planet and those other wonderful documentary style shows. Those are there, so they have this gorgeous pictures of traveling through, a kelp forest, or bumphead parrotfish, or the barracuda, or the Palau jellyfish. There's several different ones of that. Just beautiful screensavers. So all free. All for you to download and use, and to improve your working environment, your home and your computer room environment, with the beauty of these screensavers. So check it out, and I'll put the link in the show notes, of course, along with all of the other links to our picks of the week, and you can get a good sense of what that is.
And if I could add something,
Sure.
you actually can download them for a PC as well.
Oh, you can. This will work on
Yes.
Windows. Awesome.
It doesn't integrate well into the screensaver as much as, well, they actually have two versions of it. One that you can just click on and it will start playing them. And then when you escape, it goes back to your regular view. So you can use it that way. The one that was actually would integrate with the screensaver, I had less success with. But they are gorgeous on my large monitor.
Oh,
and
okay.
so you can get them, and they are self-updating. So as they change and add stuff, you will have the latest version of them at that point.
Pat, if you get a link to that, the Windows version of that, I'd appreciate that. Or otherwise,
Sure, I'll put that in there.
Yeah, and I'll make sure that's in the show notes, and we'll get those. Oh yeah, oh no, I see it. I see the link on the GitHub page. So. For Windows and for Linux even. So if you any of
Oh
those.
yeah, I'd forgotten there was a Linux one.
Yeah. So awesome. So nobody's left out. Everybody can take
Yay!
advantage. So awesome. All right. Well, before we wrap up, I want to take a moment, as we do, to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create Secrets of Technology, including Al R., Julia S., Sean M., Scott D., and Elliot B. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Technology and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So that's it from us. What did you think of our discussion? We had a whole lot we covered today with Apple Arcade, the Pope and AI, the Census, and then security updates on your devices and all that sort of thing. Any of those things, if you had anything you wanted to say about them, let us know by going to sqpn.com/technology or the SQPN Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or send us an email to technology@sqpn.com. And like I said, you'll find the links from our discussion and picks of the week on our show notes on sqpn.com. Please remember to like the show, each episode of the show as it shows up on Facebook, on Twitter, where we're at SQPN. Share it, retweet it, leave comments. That all helps us with all those various algorithms so that we can share this with more and more people and grow the audience, which is good for you and for us. So until next time, Pat Scott, thank you for joining me again and sharing the Secrets of Technology.
Good night.
Father Andrew Kinstetter, thank you as well.
You're absolutely welcome.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Technology on StarQuest.